Located 145 kilometers southeast of Berlin, Stalag Luft III was a bespoke high-security facility built between 1942 and 1944. Its explicit purpose was to contain 10 to 12,000 captured Allied airmen. The internal environment presented a strange paradox. Because the camp was operated by the Luftwaffe, the captured officers were afforded a degree of military respect. They had access to a well-stocked library, a swimming pool, and a makeshift theater. That relative comfort ended at the perimeter. The compound was enclosed by two sets of fences spaced 1.5 meters apart, completely covered in barbed wire. Any prisoner who managed to cut through that steel would then face 30 meters of open ground, constantly monitored by sentries under strict orders to shoot on sight. The camp was engineered with a specific architecture of prevention. With every hut raised off the ground to reveal digging and microphones lining the perimeter, the German military designed the facility to be a closed, inescapable system. Bypassing a surface-level security matrix required the prisoners to abandon the surface completely. They had to shift their focus to large-scale subterranean engineering. For the captive officers, escaping was a coordinated military obligation. Breaking out forced the Germans to pull vital manpower and equipment away from the front lines to conduct manhunts. This diagram illustrates the principle of asymmetric resource diversion. A small, localized action inside the camp generates expanding radial waves of disruption, forcing the animal to consume vast amounts of external resources to contain the threat. To maximize this disruption, a syndicate of roughly 600 prisoners organized to excavate 3 separate tunnels simultaneously, giving them the codenames Tom, Dick, and Harry. Initiating an industrial-scale infrastructure project presented an immediate problem. The prisoners were completely deprived of conventional raw materials and excavation tools. To secure their supplies, they used the camp's own bureaucratic loopholes. Neutral third-party inspectors from the Red Cross monitored the facility to ensure the Germans provided a minimum standard of living, meaning any broken or missing furniture had to be replaced by the administration. The prisoners systematically reverse-engineered their internment. By intentionally destroying their basic amenities to trigger mandatory replacements, they turned the camp's administrative regulations into a covert supply chain for their excavation. The first major countermeasure deployed by the German engineers was an array of highly sensitive seismographic microphones buried all around the perimeter to detect the acoustic vibrations of digging. Evading that acoustic perimeter required sinking the initial entry shaft exactly 7.6 meters into the earth, using soil to insulate the excavation noise. Reaching that depth introduced a lethal geological threat. The earth beneath the camp was a yellow, silt-like sand that was unstable and highly prone to immediate collapse. To secure the structure, the prisoners exploited the furniture replacement loophole. They purposefully broke their bedboards and chairs, forcing the camp administration to issue fresh lumber. This cross-section shows the vertical shaft descending into that volatile sandy soil. Scavenged wood was smuggled down, snapping together in an interlocking geometry to create rigid support columns capable of holding back the extreme weight of the surrounding earth. The very protocol designed to keep the prisoners comfortable became the exact mechanism that supported the structural shoring of their deep earth breach. With the shaft secured, they faced a severe logistical bottleneck. They had to move men, excavation tools, and displaced sand back and forth through a horizontal space intended to stretch 111 meters. Manually dragging bags of dirt while crawling on their stomachs was too slow to clear the required volume before the guards caught on. They solved this by engineering a subterranean rail network. The tracks were built out of scavenged table legs, held together by screws stolen right out of the camp's light fittings. Rope-pulled rail carts sat on these tracks, allowing the diggers to quickly shuttle tons of material end to end along the primary axis of Tunnel Harry. Operating at that depth also meant there was a total lack of oxygen exchange. Left alone, the diggers would suffocate in minutes. They integrated custom air pumps constructed from discarded Klim tin powdered milk cans. These makeshift bellows pushed fresh surface air deep along the rail lines, keeping the men conscious. By this point, Harry was more than a hole in the ground. It was a functional logistics network, complete with its own transport and life support systems, operating right under the guards' feet. Excavating that much earth created a massive output problem. The diggers had to conceal multi-ton volumes of displaced yellow sand. Dumping the bright subsoil onto the dull, gray dirt of the camp surface would act as an immediate visual beacon to the guards in the watchtowers. They executed the penguin protocol. Men carried displaced sand in concealed pouches sewn into their trousers, covertly releasing it while wandering the courtyard. As the sand trickled out, the men kicked the dirt with their boots, churning the bright yellow granules into the gray surface to hide evidence. This camouflage was tested constantly by the ferrets, specialized German counterintelligence personnel tasked with walking the grounds explicitly to sniff out these topographical anomalies. The risk of discovery was realized in September 1943. Ferret patrols identified a topographical inconsistency and uncovered Tunnel Tom, erasing months of work in a matter of hours. Subterranean structural engineering yielded nothing without perfect, continuous operational security and a flawless camp-wide counter-surveillance network to protect the remaining tunnel. On the night of March 24, 1944, the launch window arrived. 200 staged men prepared to deploy into the darkness. The timeline degraded almost immediately. The heavy wooden trapdoors securing the exit shaft were waterlogged and jammed, costing the operation 45 minutes of vital nocturnal cover to pry open. This schematic reveals a severe calculation error. The physical tunnel trajectory fell short of the designated safe zone in the tree line. The exit breached directly inside no man's land, forcing escaping prisoners to emerge right within the patrol paths of the perimeter sentries. At 4:55 in the morning, the friction broke the system. A misinterpreted tug on a rope led one escapee out of the hole and directly into the sightline of a passing guard, blowing the entire operation. Uncontrollable environmental variables drastically collapsed the operational window, stranding half the designated men inside the camp. Despite the abrupt end, 76 men successfully breached the wire. Their absence triggered an immediate nationwide manhunt, pulling between 60 and 70,000 Wehrmacht and Gestapo personnel off their standard deployments. The statistical reality of traversing hostile territory was grim. Only 3 men successfully navigated the continental borders, while the remaining 73 were eventually recaptured. In response, the German High Command authorized a severe, illegal reprisal. Gestapo officers murdered 50 of the recaptured airmen in staged roadside summary executions. The perpetrators of these extrajudicial killings would later be prosecuted for war crimes following the surrender of Germany. Inside the camp, the terror tactic failed to break the prisoners' operational morale. Upon learning of the executions, the men immediately initiated the construction of a brand new tunnel. Ultimately, the Stalag Luft III operation was a technical failure that ended in a war crime. But by forcing a massive diversion of Axis manpower, it fulfilled its strategic intent, occupying tens of thousands of troops while the Allied front pushed forward.